Before we begin our study for this morning, I want to just quickly do a short recap on what we studied last week. For those that were here last week, we looked at two conflicting ideas: freedom or restriction, liberty versus restriction. And we looked at, in the Christian experience, how many Christians today feel like they're restricted in their Christian experience. Restricted by rules, restricted by laws, what you can do and what you can't do. And yet sometimes these restrictions are actually to give us freedom. But we discovered in looking at this topic that usually in the case where you feel restricted, there is some fundamental principle that is missing. And this principle is the principle of love. Whether it's in a marriage relationship, family relationship, or within a relationship with Jesus Christ. And today we begin our series, part 1, Searching for Love. I believe in this world that many people, all people, are searching for love. And yet we don't know that we are searching for love. But to begin with, I want to tell you a story. I'm going to start this morning by sharing a story that will give you a bit of a picture of what we'll be talking about today. And this story is told of Mother Teresa. We're all familiar of who this lady was and the work she did. Mother Teresa was walking the streets of Kalkuta one day, and she came across a woman that was obviously homeless, that was dressed in rags, that had open wounds that bugs were infested and that were pussed up. As her custom was, her heart poured out to this lady, and she went to help her. She took her off the street. She dressed her wounds. Meanwhile, this woman was screaming and swearing and cursing at Mother Teresa. But she persisted in trying to dress the wounds and bring some sanity and cleanliness to this woman. The story goes that after a while, this woman that was on the street finally came to her senses and questioned. She says, "Sister, you're not like other people. Why do you do this? Who taught you?" Mother Teresa turns to this lady, now quiet, and she says, "My God taught me." This lady that was cursing and swearing before says to Mother Teresa, "I want to know your God." Mother Teresa, with a smile, turns to this lady, kisses her on her forehead, and says, "You know my God. His name is called love." And so this morning we're going to look at defining love. The first part in this series. How would you define love? In your mind, if you were to write down or to express to somebody else, if you were asked the question to define love, what would you say? What would you pen down on paper? Well, I want to take you through the Bible, because in 1 John 4 and verse 8, a definition is given there of what love is. The Bible says, "He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." The first definition I want to point your attention to, the description that the Bible gives of what love is the description of God. God is love. Now, when I first asked you the question to define love, I'm sure this didn't come into your mind. Maybe it did. But generally, when we think of defining love, we think of how to explain it or how to put it in other words. Maybe you thought of a story or an illustration. But the Bible depicts love as an individual, a person, a divine person. God is love. And I want to explore this thought this morning of this definition of God as being love. Because the Bible defines it that love is God or God is love. And these two are so closely connected that in our next passage, 1 John 4 and verse 16, we're told this: "And we have known and believed that the love of God the love God hath to us. God is love. Again, that thought. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Love and God are so closely connected that the Bible tells us that if you dwell in love, it's the same as you dwelling in God. Or to dwell in God is to dwell in love. And we know and believe that the love that God hath to us, God is love. This is the Bible definition of what love is. Love is not only a characteristic, is not only a principle, but it is a person, a divine person. God is love. And as a Christian, we strive to dwell in God. And yet many times we don't understand that something is closely connected in that application. That love and God are so closely connected that we cannot be part of God or dwell in God without being closely connected with love. John chapter 3 and verse 16 is an illustration of this love. And as we go through this series, we'll often refer back to what love is actually all about. Very well-known verse, for God so loved. Remember, God is love. So in his nature, he is an expression of love. What he does is an expression of what love is. When we look at God, we see a picture of love. When we look at what God does, it's an expression of love flowing out. And the Bible says, for God so loved, this expression now of love itself, flowing out from God, resulted in that he gave. Because God is love, he gave. This is the vital principle that we need to understand when we think of love. Love pours out from itself to something else, to somebody else. And in this example, God loves, so he gave. That is love. That is God. God is love. And not only God loved that he gave, but also Christ, as being God, also loved that he gave. And we read in Isaiah 53 verse 3, what is this result? It says he is despised and rejected, talking about Christ here. Because he loved, Christ now gave himself. A man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised and we esteemed him not. You can continue reading through that whole chapter. And that gives an appalling response of humanity to the love that Jesus gave. But love, in its essence, is giving. That is the nature of love. To give. To be ever outflowing from itself. Can you measure love? Can you put a tape measure around it and bring a number, a figure? Can you put it on a scales and weigh it against something else? Is it possible to measure love? You know, love is a strange thing because we all experience it in some way, sometime in our life. Maybe as a child and a parent, or maybe as a young couple, or married old people. Maybe it's that love that you have for your pet, your first pet, puppy or pussycat. But in everyday life, we experience this concept of what love is. And yet, it's so intangible, you can't define it fully. You can't measure it or put a number to it. The Bible puts it this way in Romans chapter 8, verse 38 and 39. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, shall distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, peril, or sword? For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Paul was convinced beyond a doubt, even to life itself, that the love that God has, because God is love, toward human beings, which was manifested in His Son, Jesus Christ, which is in Jesus Christ our Lord, nothing on this earth could separate us from the love God has to us. No height, nor depth, nor principalities, nor powers, not the powers of darkness, nor death itself can put a separation between God and His love for us. Because God is love. And love, by nature, is always continually expressing and flowing out. If we compare God's love for His Son, we can't measure that even. We read in John 17 verse 23, Jesus' prayer. I want you to notice something very important in this text. I in them and thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that thou hast sent me and hast loved them as thou hast loved me. I'm sure you would agree with me, it's impossible for us to put a measure between how much God loves His Son. Do you agree? We can't understand how much that God loves His only begotten Son. And yet in Jesus' prayer, in John chapter 17, Jesus makes a very interesting statement. He says something about the love that God has to us. And He compares it to the same love that the Father has to the Son, God has to us human beings. Have you contemplated this? How much God really loves us then? In John chapter 1, we were reading through prayer meeting that John describes Jesus' entrance into this world as light coming to a darkened planet. Because Jesus was revealing the Father to the world, and the world did not comprehend the Father. Today, the world is in darkness. The world does not understand who God is. The world as a whole, and Christendom as a whole, see God as Satan has depicted Him for thousands of years. A tyrant, someone who's ready to pour out his wrath. And yet the Bible tells us that God loves us as much as He loves His own dear Son. Can we fully understand then the love that God has to us? God's love has no limits. God's love is not quantifiable. You cannot put a number or a figure to it, or put a beginning and then put an end to it. It's like God Himself. He is forever and is to ever to come. Love is from ever and from ever to come. Romans chapter 5 and verse 8 says, But God commendeth His love to us, that in while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. God's love is not limited to the righteous or to those that are holy. God's love is not confined only to those that turn up to church or those that have professed His name. God's love is to all mankind, because that is God's nature, to love. While we were yet sinners, the Bible says there, while we were enemies, Christ died for us. Because that is what love is about. And as we go through this series, I want to express and trying to portray what love really is. We have a false concept in this world of what love is about. Today, love is portrayed as emotion and feeling and something that is here one day and gone the next. Something that begins in a marriage and disappears as time goes on. But love, true love, is not like this. True love is not limited. And if we were to compare the difference between God's love, eternal love, and human love, we would see that human love has limits. We limit our love depending on how you treat me, what you say to me, how close of a relationship I have with you. God's love has no limit. He says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Human love is conditional. Marriages start off with vows that are unconditional. Till death do us part, they say. Through sickness and health, through poverty and wealth. And yet, a few years later, those promises have faded like the summer grass. Human love is conditional. Yet God's love is unconditional. God does not put condition on your experience with Him. He does not put a condition that He will love you until a certain point in your life, until you do a certain thing. God will love you to the last. Jesus, as He's riding up on the hillside, looking over Jerusalem, tears rolled down His cheeks. He foresaw the destruction of Jerusalem, and He loved the people. He says, "Oh, that I could gather you together like a hen gathers her chicks." And yet they were the ones that crucified Him. This is love. This is true love, unconditional love. Human love fluctuates. And you might have come across this one in your friends, through your relationships. Depends on the weather. Maybe it's other things. One day I love you, next day it's not so good. Next week it's all good again because everything goes well. That's human love. It fluctuates. It goes up and down, depending on our emotion, depending on how we feel, depending on whatever circumstances might have taken place during the week. Yet safe to say, God's love is a constant. God's love does not diminish depending on what sin you've committed this week or how bad you are. God's love is a constant, continue and forever, like Himself. Human love can be defined as perverted. Human love is not pure in the fullest sense. Yet the love that God has can be defined as pure, holy, as God Himself. For God is love. Some of the effects of love. As we mentioned earlier, we're all aware or come in contact with what we call love in some point in our life. As human beings, we're able to experience love. It's something that God has made us with the capacity to be able to feel and to be able to give. And yet, strangely enough, you can't put your thumb on it. And yet, it's something that you feel inside here. It makes you warm. It makes you feel secure. It makes you happy. And on the other hand, without love, you feel sad and miserable. Without love, people take their lives. They feel worthless. They feel like there's no hope. And we can see why this world is in a condition it is. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, we read last week, that the love of many shall wax cold. And the result of having no love or not understanding or not being loved can be seen in the condition of the world we live in. People searching for something that they don't know what it is, and yet there's a desire built inside of us to find what they can't feel, what they can't touch. Until, with desperate anxiety, people take their life because they haven't found. Through amusement and drugs and alcohol and adrenaline and parties and friends and marriages, come to the end of the road, have not found love, true love. Let's have a look. I've picked out 3 effects. There's many effects that love has, many attributes of love, but I want to pick out 3. Now, the first one is very interesting. The effects of love, and you might have come across this, you might have experienced this if you sit down and have a think about it. But the example I'm going to give here is in Genesis chapter 29 and verse 20. The story here is about Jacob when he flees from his father and he finds this beautiful girl that he wants to marry. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love that he had to her. What is happening here? Now, love is the element that makes the difference. Time is a factor. How long did Jacob serve?
7 years.
7 years. And he loved this woman that he was willing to serve 7 years for her. But how long in reality to him, not to everyone else, but to him, did that feel like? Few days. It would be safe to say that love warps time. Love impacts your perception of what time is. For Jacob, 7 years seemed only a few days. When I first got married, 12 hours seemed like a long time when you're away at work. So on one hand, love makes time feel like it's only short, and on the other hand, it makes it sometimes feel like it's a long time. Has time changed? What has changed? Love is involved, a principle, and it changes our perception of what time is. See the power of love. Just in this example here, love can make the difference in how you perceive things. Love can make the difference if you perceive things as a negative or a positive. 7 years, Jacob could have thought 7 years, but no, he said it was only like a few days because of the love he had to her. This is one example, many examples of what love can do, but this is the power of love. What impact or what connection is there between love and force? The example I want to read here is from John chapter 8, verse 10 and 11. When Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman. Now this is the woman that was caught in adultery. I'm sure we all remember the story. He said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Jesus has just finished writing in the sand, and the Pharisees have seen what he's written down. And conscience has pricked, and they've walked away. Remember, Jesus just gave them the right to stone her. Was she guilty? She was guilty. Caught in the very act, they said. Previous verse. Jesus gave permission to follow out the law of Moses, which was to stone her. But Jesus took a different route here. She was guilty. Justice was required. Yet Jesus puts here, in between justice here and guilt, he puts something in between there. And instead of showing her only justice, which would have been stoning, he puts the principle of love in place. Now, let me ask you a question. Did this woman know what she was doing would result in death? Did she know that this was against the commandments, against the law of Moses, that she could be found guilty and put to death? Was she aware of that? She was a Jew. She knew. And yet, no matter that the law said she should be put to death, something took place here that for the whole time she was practicing sin and condemned under the law, and the punishment, the fear of punishment, could not do to her. What did not the fear of punishment do to her? The fear of being caught and put to death was not enough. That force to put her to death was not enough to change her actions. Yet Jesus comes along and puts the principle of love there in between justice and her guilt. He places right in the middle the principle of love. And what happened to her life? What happens? What the law could not do, what the fear of death itself could not do to her life, love did. The law did not change her life. The fear of death, fear of being caught out, knowing she was guilty, was not strong enough to change the life that she was living. And yet, one encounter with Christ, feeling the principle of love that Jesus put there in her heart, completely changed the rest of her life. This is the effect of love. He goes on there to say, Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. The power of love can do what the power of force and the law cannot do. And this is one example. The effects of true love upon a life, a human being. Let's have a look at our third example here. Fear. Now, fear is something that plagues humanity in many different areas of our life, whether it be fear of standing in front of people, fear of the dark, fear of being put down, fear of being condemned, fear of being the odd one out, fear of being teased. Fear pervades our life from the childhood to our dying breath. And yet the Bible says something very interesting when it comes to fear and love. 1 John 4 and verse 18 says, "There is no fear in love." Notice these words. There is no fear in love, but perfect love does what? Cast out fear. So, to have love means that fear is absent. To have fear then would mean what? Love must be absent. Because fear and love cannot be together. Perfect love, we're talking about God's love, divine love, casts out all fear. Many times we're afraid. Our life is day by day lived in fear of what other people think, of what other people might say, what we wear because we might not be accepted. And yet we don't perceive it as being fear, but we're driven by this fear to be accepted. Something's missing. What's missing? Perfect love. Because perfect love, knowing that God loves you so dearly as His own Son, that you in Jesus Christ are accepted with the Father as His son and daughter, that you don't need to fear what other people might think of who you are. Fear, when you understand God's love to you, is driven out of your heart. Fear of telling others about Him, fear of being unaccepted, fear of being kidnapped, or fear of being harassed, whatever the fear might be. To know God's love casts out fear. And this is the power of love. Because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. See that? If we're afraid to come to God, we're afraid of what others think, we're afraid of so many things, then it shows us that this perfect love is not made perfect in us. We have not experienced this true love that God is offering to us. God is love. Love is God. So these three aspects, what we've looked at, what love can do. In essence, in Jacob's experience, love warps time. It changes your perception of what time is. That is the power of love. Love is stronger than force. It changed that woman in one touch of Jesus' love. Changed her whole life that the law and condemnation could not do. And love overcomes fear. The touch of love drives out fear. And in summarizing our points for this morning, the source of love is who? God. God is love. He that dwelleth in God dwelleth in love, for God is love. Love is not quantifiable. We cannot put limits, boundaries. We cannot say love is restricted to this. Otherwise, we do not have true love. Because God's love is not measurable. It's not counted in numbers or feet or meters or kilometers or miles. God's love is infinite as Himself. And the effects of love has power that can do things nothing else can. Love can change lives. Jesus says, if I be lifted up, He was talking about the cross. which is the greatest revelation of God's love to human beings. He says, if I am lifted up from the earth, what will the effect be? I will draw all men unto me. If we can perceive the love that God has revealed through His Son dying on the cross, then that love will have a reaction to draw our souls closer to Jesus Christ. That is the effect of love. But so many times there's so many things that bar our vision from understanding or comprehending what the love is that God has for each one of us. And so we hold back because we have a picture of God that repels us from Him. And as a Christian, you know what our responsibility is? You know what our job is as a Christian missionary? It's not to bring people to the law. It's not to bring people to the church. Our job as a missionary, as a Christian, as brothers and sisters today, is to bring a clearer picture of God's character to those in this world. That's what Jesus came to do. John chapter 1, Jesus came a light into the world because the world was darkness. And it says the world, the darkness, comprehended it not. And they crucified Him because they could not perceive the love of God. And our responsibility is to reveal what God is really about. And as we go through this series, In Search of Love, we're going to be looking at in depth, in greater detail, the aspects of love, how it relates to us as family members, as church members, in the community, in the world, and our responsibility to those around us. Why should we settle for second best? Why should we be content with human love? Notice here in Jesus' prayer, John chapter 17, verse 26, Jesus prayed something that should be our desire, our hope. And I have declared unto them thy name. Here, Jesus revealing what His mission was. He came to declare the Father, reveal the character of God. What is the character of God? What is God? God is love. Jesus came to declare unto them thy name, and will declare it, that the love wherein thou hast loved me may be in them. Jesus' prayer here to the Father, before He closes His ministry on this earth, He prays and says, the same love that you've loved me may be in them. Why do we settle for second best? Why do we settle for human love when Jesus' own prayer is that we may have that same love that God has in us, abiding in us? One of our opening texts was, if you dwell in God, you dwell in love. I want to close with a story. This story illustrates divine love, if ever a picture could show. True love. This story takes us back to 1994 in Rwanda. Many of us would remember, some of our brethren here would even closer at home to this story. There was a lady in Rwanda. She was a Hutu. And her husband was a Tutsi. And she had 2 sons. And there was a genocide taking place between the Hutus and the Tutsis. And the Hutus were coming and destroying, killing, massacring the Tutsis. And finally they come to this lady's farm. They knew that she was a Hutu and her husband was a Tutsi. They ran in there, they grabbed hold of the husband, and in front of her son and her, they took his head off. And then they took the 2 boys and did the same thing. She could do nothing. She was helpless. They took off and continued the rampage. These were 2 young men that took the lives of this husband and 2 sons of this lady. And after many years, a new president come along. And some of these that had committed these horrific crimes were put in prison. But this lady was left without her husband, without her 2 sons, and the memory of that gruesome day that she lost everything. She had 2 choices. Was she going to give up on life, or was she going to go forward? And after a while, she made a decision. She was going to continue with life. But not only was she going to continue with life, but she was going to give back despite what was taken. So she went and volunteered to go to some of these prisons where these people were held. And one of the prisons that she was working out, she had no idea, but those two men, the young men that took her husband and her two sons' life, were there in that prison. Later she learned that they were there. But her heart had changed from that day after being bitter of what happened. She had made a choice in her life that she was going to follow that true love. And here the story continues. Not only did she continue to assist, but she took a special liking to these people, these two men. Actually, I think it was one. Correct me, there was one man that did this. To this young one man. And so she took special care like her own son. And one day these young men were coming to be put on trial for the crimes they committed. And the story got out. And the judge knew, the prosecutor knew, that this woman had lost her husband and sons to this young man that was now being put on trial. And so he did something very interesting. He called the woman to the front of the court. And he said, because this young man has taken from you your husband and your two boys, I'm giving you the right to pronounce his sentence. Seems fair. And you know what she did? She thought for a moment. And she turned to the judge and she said, this is my verdict. This is what I want to happen. I want him to be legally my son. That he now is adopted as my only child. And I want him to visit me, to be mandatory to visit me twice a week. Can you imagine that, the woman? To this young man that had taken the life of her husband and her two children, two sons. And now she wants him to be her only son? To be legally adopted as her child. And that he's to come and visit with her. This is an example of what true love is. And you know what? After a while, it took a while, because she had put the past behind. Her life was changed. But this young man took a while. But eventually, his heart also was changed. And then they become like true mother and son. This is a real story that took place. This is an example of the power of love upon a human heart. What it can do. There's a song that says, love can turn the world. What is missing amongst our families, amongst our churches, amongst the world? What is missing? It's the absence of this. What everyone is searching for, yet many people never seem to find. True love is what God is offering us. And as a Christian, we should have a greater understanding of what this is. This should be a principle that underlies everything that we do, every motive, every action, every word we speak. Do we have that love within our hearts? Can we say that we have God's love in us? Could we do what this woman did? Defining love, part 1. This is what we went through today, looking at the aspects of what love is and what Bible definition of love. Next time, when we continue our series, we'll be looking at built for love, how God has designed human beings for love, and why innately we have this desire to be loved. And some of the results of what a person can turn out or will turn out like if love is missing in their life. Some examples of children that have not had a loving environment to grow up. And we see again the importance of what love is and why human beings so desperately cry out for it. and why the world is crying out for a true picture of the character of God, which is God is love. I pray we may be blessed and that God will touch our hearts, that we may desire and strive for an understanding of this love, that it may dwell in us, that God may dwell in us, for God is love. Amen.